Got it. Look at that.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Hey, Josh. How's it going?
Good, good.
Mhm. Okay, let me go and set this up. Save this first. So I have like a template for scenes. Try to fill out for every scene. Got a scene description. You got the parent sequence if it's part of a larger sequence. Um, you have locations. You know, some scenes span multiple locations, or it might be a single place. Oops, put space in that. Might make these a little bit larger. I don't know. Oops. Principal characters. What happens? Like that's like I saw. Scene purpose. That's what happens. Then emotional shift. Emotional shift. Most good scenes have like a shift from happy to sad, hopeful to hopeless, all that kind of stuff. So you want to generally do that to give the scene a dynamic. Okay, so this is all. Let me zoom in more into this. That I probably should have bolded the colons real well. Okay. How many scenes is this? So it's like one, two, one, two, three, four, five, six.
So I think what you're saying is that that's going to be our template. Like we break down each little scene that we've broken up, and
Mhm.
no,
Yeah, so it looks like there are about 30 scenes. I probably should do this though, just kind of. Oh, wow, friends at the end here. Just have 3 rows, act 1, act 2, act 3, just to kind of keep up the understanding. Watched that horror movie, The Descent, yesterday. About people stuck in a cave.
Oh yeah, how was it?
Pretty good. It's pretty good horror movie. It's not that complicated, but horror movies usually aren't. But they, they did a good job. It's funny because I started as a low rent sequel to it too. I kind of started, but I didn't do very far into it. I just wanted to see how it started. Although it's kind of curious because it's changed, but like the first one was made by one writer director, and I think he was writing it intending for it to kind of not maybe sequels be made for it. But I guess the production companies or whatever, they were always own the property, so they went and got some other people to make a sequel. It was okay, but like, you can kind of tell it's not going to be as good. Might be all right, but it's not going to be as good. Spread this out a little bit to give us space for writing. Oh, we got a thingamajig there. Oops. That was good. 3, 6. Also watched this movie recently called The Drop with Tom Hardy and the now deceased Jim Gandolfini. That was also good. It was screenwritten by Dennis Lehane, who also wrote the short story it was based on. It's like a crime movie. So, um, first one. Okay, so first scene is the introduction of the hostile tribe. Um, Introduction of Tara and her husband. Um, Tribe scouts return with refugees. That's the third scene. The fourth scene is tribal meeting. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of now here. That's the thing. So, hmm, that seems to all be all one scene because sometimes that can be. There's a lot of writing here, but I think that's all for one scene. So you would,
Yeah.
so I think I'll just tribal meeting about refugees. That's that. So that's it. That's it for the what we call the first act. So what I'm gonna do now is take these. I think they were till 30, so I'm just gonna add them. Why don't we do easier thing than doing that? Rid of those and just like add some more this way. Let's do that. Now, in general, I would say that's probably a little worrisome that your first act only has 4 scenes out of the 30, but I think that it's you know, we don't have to worry about that to not actually making it. And a TV show sometimes, just some of these scenes can be long on the longer side. So you have to kind of gauge, how long the scenes you expect them to be, because some can be a lot longer than others, but it probably would need to be a little bit more filled out in general for that. Okay. Okay. So the first act introduces the introduction of the various tribal entities you can work with. So introduction to tribe structure. Let's say introduction to tribal structure. Okay. Second one is montage of Tara's husband teaching Jay hunting. I also say Jay trying to learn hunting, trying to learn to hunt. Okay. Next one, Jay is totally hunter.
You want me to start filling out the Act 3 ones?
Sure, yeah, you go ahead. I think for the
Okay.
Act 3, you may have to start. This obviously is going to be one. I think for almost every paragraph of the third one. And a lot of them are their own scenes. Some are very brief ones, but that's why I was like that. A lot of the scenes are there. But yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead and start with the top of Act 3.
Okay.
And just you can simplify it because those things have other fields. So you're gonna be able to some of that other information will go in there, and we don't need to repeat every aspect of here. We just need to kind of put it through a different lens because this isn't going anywhere. We can still go back up and refer to it for the scene. It's kind of try to focus on different stuff about how you would write the scene that might not be covered by just description of what happens. Yeah. Okay, so okay. Tara learns of Jay's failure. Jay lets his brother know the hunting isn't working. Jay. Did you happen to see the movie The Marvels?
I haven't.
Okay, I'm not surprised. I'm asking it, not thinking you've seen it. I took my daughter to see it. You see almost all the Marvel stuff. It's some terrible writing, man. Like it's one of those things that like I'm looking at like this stuff and just in general, and it's like um there's like good dialogue, but the story they're telling is just terribly told. This is a nightmare. It still has some charm to it because there's some good performances and it's got cute stuff in it. It's the fan service and stuff, but the story isn't hidden at all.
Yeah, I'm always saying like people think there's like superhero fatigue, and it's like I don't think there is. We like it just the writing isn't there anymore. Me and my friend were like went through and looked at all the different Marvel movies and how many Marvel movies used to come out every year. And they used to only put out like two a year. Now they put out like eight a year. It's bananas.
Yeah,
And you
the
can the
content grab
quality
is
is
like
nothing.
exponential. In terms of
Yeah,
overall product, the content curve is exponential.
yeah,
Every everyone they did used to be like a prize, like it was special. And at some point it turned into a mill.
yeah.
And
And I
I think
think
part
that's
of
the problem. It's just no good
right.
writers for it.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing is we'll realize early on the talent that was working on them early on, like people like first of all they had to do what's his name DC stole him away after kind of Marvel jerked him around a bunch. What's that guy's name? He did the Guardians of the Galaxy series. He's a writer director of that series. But the rumor is he would do ghostwrite and do edits on all the early Marvel stuff. James Gunn, James Gunn, and he made this independent movie called Brightburn. That's kind of cool too. It's like a kind of horror movie type thing, kind of a light horror kind of play on superhero stuff. That's kind of cool. Called Brightburn. It came out like 5 years ago. But yeah, James Gunn. So he was a guy kind of in the background that might have a lot to do with a lot of the early effectiveness of the scripts. But they also had really good talent, like Ryan Coogler is he's a pretty good writer director. Did the both of the Black Panther movies. They had the Russo brothers. They had I'm not a huge fan of Josh Whedon, but he definitely has his fans and has his talents. He worked on the first Avengers. They had Favreau was working on this stuff. They had a lot of people like that, and these new people, like people from TV shows and like random people. The person that directed the Eternals had only made well, actually was an alma mater of my mom's college. She's on the cover of my mom's alumni magazine. But this director only directed one other movie before. She directed The Eternals. It's her second movie. And her other movie was something about like I don't know, like prisoners in the Middle East or something. It was something totally different, far out, different type of story. Nothing to do with superheroes or anything like that. And it's funny because there's a video that I'm meaning to watch where somebody's trying to explain about how Eternals is actually really good. Like I could barely sit through it. I thought it was horrible. Because I think I was expecting a superhero movie, but they're like essentially saying that it's actually something totally different and it's trying to be deep and all this stuff. And probably are elements of that. There's probably deep stuff that's written in there, but as a superhero movie, it's a nightmare. Uh, but yeah, people like that. Like I think it's a talent problem. Like you said, like it's too much, and then it's just the people they get, and they alienate people. And apparently, all their shows they don't have showrunners. They essentially their showrunners are a group of producers that kind of decide what happens on the shows, and then they tell the writers what to write. But there's no person that's like the head writer that's saying, "I'm the person who knows story, and I make sure every story that's written is sound." There's nobody that does that. It's just like they're handing out producers handing out assignments for writing, which is why you get
Yeah.
the weird quality jumps and kind of the sometimes the path of some of the story. Like some of the shows took like even the first series of Loki. I'm working my way through the second season with my daughter. And it's generally an interesting show and has good actors and stuff in it and stuff. But I remember the first season, it was kind of bouncing all over the place a little bit. Like it was like it started like one type of show, it kind of turned into something else, and then turned into something else by the end. And it was kind of a weird thing to watch. And I liked some of it more than other things, but I didn't love it as much as other people because I found it kind of weird the way it did that. It seemed to start off as one kind of show, but I can see like, oh, there's no showrunner saying this is the kind of show I'm making. And so it's probably just being dictated. Okay, this episode's about this. These two are about that. These two are about this. And so you get this helter skelter kind of storytelling or this kind of multiple personality storytelling. And that happened with, I think, Hawkeye to some extent. I saw that one. The Winter Soldier one was pretty. It was held to get. Was didn't have as much inconsistency. It had its flaws, but it was more consistent. It didn't feel like two different shows mashed together the way some of them did. But yeah, so yeah, I agree with you. It's a quality problem, and it's like I think the new people they're bringing on just aren't that good. They're not as experienced. I mean, the first Thor was directed by Kenneth Branagh, who I actually didn't even like that one that much. But that's a dude that's directed like dozens of movies, right? Like this experienced guy, and he was replaced by the second movie by somebody I don't know, and then the third movie was Tiki Watiti. But the thing was, he didn't write it, so he was the director. He was involved in it, but he wasn't like in total control. Love and Thunder, he had total control, and I think kind of went off the deep end a little bit. Was what the story decided to tell. I think that one didn't work. That's on my worst ones list there, along with Eternals. And now I think the Marvels is now like maybe the third worst Marvel movie. It's I don't know. I don't know, you sit through it. It's not hard to sit through, but then you leave, you're like, what did I just watch? You know,
Yeah.
those kind of movies. It's not movies because I'm loving Thunder and Eternals. I'm sitting there like, man, I want to leave. I don't want to watch the rest of this movie. Like, what are they doing? This doesn't make any sense. Like, it's just hurt. It's hard for me to sit here. It wasn't hard to sit through. So, I'll say that, but it wasn't that good. Let me see, where's I at? I'm losing track. So then failure. Jay tells his brother the bad news. What else we got here? The trader succeeds. I'm kind of glad the other people didn't show up for this one because I'm like, I want to explain this whole thing to some people. So I'm like, I was all two people. I'm like, really? You people gonna join now? To bring anything? No, you don't have to bring anything, but now I gotta explain this whole dang story to you. Uh, and at this point, it's like, because after this, I think I talked to you about it. But after this, I want to kind of like say, okay, look for somebody. It could be you, but just somebody to say, oh, I have a story that I want to write, and I want you all to just help me break the story for me to actually then go
Yeah.
and write. You know,
That'd be fun.
that way I can kind of help support, but it can be about somebody's story through it because this is cool, but it's like the stakes are low because I'm like, nobody's actually gonna write this. We're just kind of practicing. That's cool, and it's good to kind of figure out what we need to do and how to do it, and that's a good process. But to me, I feel better about it if somebody was going to say, okay, I'm going to take this and actually go write it, and it's theirs. Like they're the authority on they're the head writer of it. Like whoever it is,
Yeah.
it's their thing. They're the head writer. Other people can pitch
That,
ideas. They're in control of the board.
that's why I kind of wanted to do this is like, we figure out where the bumps are on the road, and then we
Mm,
do another one, and hopefully it's less bumpy, and then we just keep doing them until we get like a really good system, and along the
mm,
way we learn to write.
yeah. Oops, I took cancel. I didn't. And one thing I want to do is like take this board and kind of figure out how to organize it so kind of like as a workflow for like going through this process. Oh, that's two different scenes. I didn't realize that. One other thing you could put on this template, but I wouldn't worry about doing it, is you could put uh where to come in and where to go out. But to me, I kind of feel like you want to actually be writing scenes before you worry about that. coming in late as late as possible, leaving as soon as possible. So I think you want to kind of get a draft of the scene, and then you can trim it at that point. Finish the second act, right back, and put the stuff in the way. So the aftermath in that case would be the parent scene. So aftermath of battle would be like the next line. And so you would have one, two, it looks like four scenes in the aftermath.
So would I just put aftermath here?
Oh, hold on, let me scroll down again. I'll look up at the top. Yes, like aftermath of battle, maybe. Or aftermath is probably fine for our purposes. But yeah, you want to do that. And see, that's the parent in the battle itself. So the parent sequence for most of the third act was the actual battle itself. Yeah, we can come back and do that when we go back through it. But I'm just saying, since you put aftermath there, remove that too. Other line. Well, I kept the government open.
What's that?
They kept the government open. The Biden signs budget passed by House to avoid shutdown.
Oh, okay.
Oh, of course, the budget was passed by the House and the Senate. What did he say? They know because the House was where they weren't sure if it'd be able to pass. I guess that's why they're saying it that way. But it was passed by both houses of the legislature. I would assume. How's it only going to be signed by the House? It doesn't make sense. Yeah, with the Senate support, the Senate has to. Oh, he's ready to. Okay. Hey, what? What? So the title of the thing says Biden signs budget passed by House to avoid shutdown, comma White House. But you look down and it says U.S. President Joe Biden is ready to sign the bill. That's two different things. This is bad. It's probably AI writing it or something. Terrible. Hmm. So we can look at once you're finished with the scene titles, you can come over to
Okay.
Act One. Okay, so I'm doing the first scene here. So introduction of hostile tribe, locations, the hostile tribe, the hostile tribe's encampment. Principal character is a hostile tribal chief, just him. Nobody else is just his minions. Oh, I think uh Tribe Scout. Well, he's one of them. So that's just two key characters. Emotional shift. It starts off with the glory of victories. I'm talking about how happy they are. They won, and then and that transitions to desire to or what's that word I'm looking for when you're doing like you're like ha 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 you're scheming. What's an emotional term for a kind of I guess I could say desire for more battle or something like that. Like it kind of shifts when whatever, and he's like, now to the next one kind of thing. So I don't know how to say that. But desire for what happens is, wow, relishing a recent victory.
So where did you learn this method at? Because I don't remember seeing this in, is this from something else you've done before?
This is something I just came up with of different things that I've learned from both from Michael Jamin as well as like other stuff I've read. But most of this is descriptive. So really it's just there's more information you can add. I'm trying to just say what do you need? If I need to write this scene, what do I need to know? Where it is, the characters are involved in it. Why am I writing? Like, what's the scene supposed to accomplish by the end of it? So that's what the scene purpose. What happens is, what does the scene have to accomplish by the end of it? And really, I don't even need to write this. And so what you want to say is, um, hostile tribal chief is told of another tribe to plunder. So that's what happens in the scene, right? That's what it accomplishes. But then you say, well, what's the enjoyment of it watching it? And so this one, usually you have and this is something Michael Jamin talked about, but I've heard about it other places, which is most major scenes, not every like tiny scene in the last 20 seconds, any major scene in the last several minutes, there's some kind of emotional shift that takes place. A lot of times, like he talked about in sitcoms, it's two people arguing about something and they may have a disagreement, and the shift might go from, oh, they're happy to the person comes and tells them something, now they're sad, or they're hopeful but they told something, now they're not so hopeful, or they're hopeless but it's done something good and they become hopeful. And oftentimes scenes reverse it. So you'll go from, in a movie more so, or a single plot, you'll go from hopeless to hopeful back to hopeless, from hopeless back to hopeful. Now some people do that too to aggressively do that back and forth, and it's kind of ridiculous. But you generally want that kind of some kind of emotional shift to give a scene life, because if you don't have that, it kind of seems flat. Like, why did I just watch that? Which is honestly, watching those scenes in movies and TV, sometimes you're like, well, why did I just watch this? And information's conveyed, so it's kind of like something happened, but it feels like nothing happened. I think that's because there's no shift in the feelings of any of the characters or in the tone of of what's going on in the movie overall, or TV show overall. So this is me. Most of this is just information. This is just describe the scene. But I'm thinking like, okay, if I'm going to write, the next step after this would be to actually write like a several odd page outline of this story with all the characters named, and you're describing the scenes, you're using certain pieces of important dialogue, and you're writing, say, okay, what information? So I'm thinking, what information would I need in order to be able to write that? And just some other stuff you have to do. You have to name all the people, like Tara's husband needs a name, Jay's brother needs a name. So just naming people, but that's not that important in terms of what we're doing. But you have to do that. But you also have to say, how do I connect? What are all of my scenes that I've created, and what's because when you write the outline in theory, you want to have at least a basic idea of the dynamic of the scene, like how the emotions shift, how the characters are being affected by what they're learning or what's happening to them. And so that's what the emotional shift and scene purpose are about. That's the only really new things you're adding. And the rest of it is just more descriptive. Like if you were doing like we just did a board, right? He talks about in his training, like you have cards for your scenes. And these are kind of like those cards. They're a little bit, there's more information because most people aren't going to go and write 6 or 7 lines on a card. Yeah, this is a screwdriver, but pretend it's a pen. They're not going to write 6 or 7 lines on a little 3x5 index card. It's too much. This is a computer screen. It doesn't matter. So I can go ahead and write more information for it. But to answer your question, like I came up with this, but it's based on what I've learned as much from Michael Jam as anybody else about what's in a scene. Like, that's, and there's books about that. One book is actually pretty good. It's not good at teaching you how to write, but it's good at understanding what works. And that's this. And wow, it's like this thing's blurred out. Put it in front of myself. Woo, it's Story by Robert McAfee, Robert McKee. And I've seen, it's funny, I know a working writer. He was the showrunner for CSI, the new CSI remake. And this is one of the books he had in his desk. I already had it at that point, but this is like a classic, But and then at the end, the one thing that's really good, it's funny, he writes his whole book. One of the best things in it's right at the end. A lot of it is him talking about all the different types of movies and TV shows and defining all these genres and all that stuff. But one of the things that's really good is right at the end, he talks about writing a treatment. He has one paragraph like writing a treatment, and he talks about all this highlighting. Yeah, to treat the step outline, which is like what kind of we have, which is you expand each scene from its 1 or 2 sentences to a paragraph, double space, present tense, moment by moment description, and that's what your treatment is. But he doesn't spend a lot of time on it. But yeah, if you go to act board, then you make your cards for your scene. Because imagine these are like 3x5 cards. These are your cards. And in complicated stories, you can move them around. And this you could a little bit theory. You can move. I don't think it really makes sense to, but you might theoretically could do that. Because a lot of times your act board won't be quite as structured as that. It'll be more so just this should happen and that should happen and this should happen. You make cards for them, and those are your scenes, and then you put them in order, act 1, act 2, actually on the board. So that's why I kind of reproduced the board. Here's the acts. I thought the writing would go further across, I guess. Because I guess I could do that because I was kind of, like that. So like, but yes, this is your act board, and then you do this. You go to what he calls a step outline, which is you then say, okay, you kind of turn these back into lines of text, but the lines of text are primarily kind of a combination of what's above, but they don't have a ton of detail, but are really just saying who's in it, what happens, what changes, why it's important, and kind of you encompass that. And then in your outline, you expand that out into like a full paragraph, get a little more color, maybe 1 or 2 lines of dialogue for each scene. Although that seems kind of weird to me, actually have dialogue, unless it's really important. You mostly would just say, this person tells them this person says this, all that kind of stuff happens. And then there's your outline. And hopefully somebody can read your outline and they would understand dramatically what you're trying to accomplish, as well as, technically, literally what happens, but also we get the emotion, because that's the thing that I can see writing. And when I would just write a screenplay and not go through this process, you can miss what's the emotion of it. And so you write something that all the dots connect, but then you're like, what story have I really told? And so this method and what, Michael Jam talks about doing is a way of saying, okay, have your story first, then you connect the dots. And so here you're kind of getting to the point where you're connecting dots, but you still have to make sure that every scene is good content. You're not having too many placeholder scenes that are just connecting the last scene to the next one. Because you watch movies, that's one of the things I'll notice in a movie, is like, oh, there's too many scenes that are just connecting to the next scene that aren't themselves a good scene. They're just connecting, too much glue and not enough building or not enough brick. I don't know what best way to say that, but too much.
It's a great reminder to just go back and be like, oh, this is what I wanted this scene to do. I wanted to go from this emotion to this emotion. Yeah, it's a good, little method. I didn't know if it was something you picked up somewhere.
Nah, I'm sure there's something somewhere. And I want to say, you know what I meant to do is I forgot to. Let me pull up. I have my notes for his class. Let me see. Where is writers at breaking in memorable characters, pitching a plot. writing the outline, is that it? Okay, let me see his writing outline. We got here. If a character doesn't have an attitude about the problem, they shouldn't be in the scene. When a character enters the scene, they usually enter on a new dynamic or bring new information. Dig in the moments you might rush over. Every scene needs conflict. So that's something, you know what? That's funny. That's something that I already did the dang template, but just emotional shift can be, it kind of relates to the conflict. But can be thought of in the same sense. Like there should be some disagreement of some sort, and I think that's true. In general, you want to have some form of content or discord. Otherwise, what's the point? Character can be a proxy for the audience. So like he doesn't have a form of template, but yeah, a lot of this is stuff related to what we're doing now. At the end of every scene, the character's attitude must be different than what it is at the beginning. So that's part of your emotional shift. Now, he's presuming you're talking about a single character. Now, you have stories of multiple characters. Whoever the primary character for that scene is, their attitude should shift. So, like this first scene, that emotional shift is the tribal chief. He goes from glory and relishing victory to having desire for more battle based on the information of learning that, oh, I'll plunder something, right? So that's his shift. That's his shift there. There's not a lot of conflict though, and that's the thing. I think sometimes people force conflict when the scene doesn't need it per se. So like this scene, you could have somebody in hostile tribes say, why don't we just, and they might do this, we should just enjoy this. Why are we so rushed to have another one? And the tribal leader shouts him down. There's your conflict. Now am I seen as conflict? I've passed the test. They might do that. I don't know if you need it, depending on how long the scene is. But that's something you might add to the scene to make it longer, to give it conflict, so the scene's 20 seconds long, it doesn't need conflict. It's just information. Scene's 4 minutes long, it probably should have some degree of disagreement among the characters of some sort. So that's another thing that should probably be in here is I'm gonna go add it to this thing here. We don't have to worry about it. We can just add it to emotional shift, but character conflict. Yeah. But it's funny because you can see sometimes that people do that, but when they do it, they're very it seems very forced, that they didn't necessarily write it with that intent in mind. Like sometimes you'll see it sometimes in shows and you're watching it, and a certain character that's generally very agreeable and what have you, for some reason is arguing a point you wouldn't expect them to argue. And the reason is because the writer felt like the scene needed conflict. So that, oh, you know what happened? I'm a big fan of Star Trek. And what they would do is every episode there'd be a scene where once the show got going for a while, they'd be in this room and have this long table in it, and they're all around the all the chiefs of the different groups. And they would show what the issue is for the episode, and then they would each kind of give their opinion about it. And sometimes amongst the crew, they would argue sometimes about things, and sometimes, especially later on in the show, it sometimes felt forced. I remember this episode where they had a warp drive, and they discovered that warp drives might damage the galaxy. It was kind of like a play on global warming, So there's like global warming for warp drives, right? Because the warp drives they're warping space time by doing it, and it's damaging space time. And so they have this meeting, and during the meeting, the person introducing this, and Geordi, who's the chief engineer, gets really upset about it and is really agitated about this suggestion that warp drives might be hurting the galaxy. Like he's like a oil baron. He's like, don't, regulate my oil. Environment's gonna be fine. Like Geordi's like,
yeah.
You're thinking like, Geordi, you're a scientist. Like if this guy sounds real, the pushback is like, what's your vested interest in being able to go warp 7 whenever you want to? Like, do you really care about that? Like, it was an odd thing for him to be as vehement, but they were trying to make this thing. They're trying to create this kind of social dynamic that kind of reflect real life. And so they had Geordi playing the, skeptic. But I felt like the show kind of overdid it to the point where you're looking at Geordi kind of crazy. Like what's your problem, man? Like it's science. Science says it's doing damage, man. Like, just look at the science. But he's, not his personal investment in warp drives and going fast at warp speed. Because what they did was by the end of the episode, they said, okay, from now on, there's a warp speed limit for the entire galaxy. Unless it's an emergency, can't go over warp 5, even though it's emergency all the time. So after the episode, they're going over warp 5 all the time because it's always an emergency. So like that's nice.
Yeah.
You can't don't drive maximum speed everywhere whenever you go, Starfleet. All right. So that was the end of the show. And of course, Geordi comes around and says, oh, you guys were right. Gotta be worried about the warp drive. So anyway, that was the conflict of that scene. And it would set up the conflict for the whole episode. So the whole episode, Geordi is a skeptical one about the technology and about the thing. He's the last holdout. Do we have to do something? All right, let's keep on going now because already almost seven. Okay. So introduction of Tara and her husband. So parent sequence in no parent sequence. Location is now there's two. So I probably put this in the wrong order. I probably should. So what happens is intro of characters and their it's I'm terrible typing and their dynamic and their interpersonal dynamic. Emotional shift is marital bliss to what were they talking? I don't remember what they were doing. They're talking about like I think it's just um, like complexity of the world. Like I think maybe we have it cut right into when the people arrive with the refugees, so they're just kind of enjoying their life and whatever, and then they hear commotion, like, oh man, what's going on? Like everything is cool, and then something disrupts all of that. Um, oh, you know what? Actually, let me do this. Uh, they recall loss of unborn child. So that's the other thing we learn. And that kind of brings down their emotional high. And this is like so this is Tara, husband.
And that's his name, Tara's husband.
That's right, that's his name. It's too late now. Damn Tara's husband. And location would be Tara's home, whatever that is. Okay. Here we go.
So how did you picture doing this? Like, did you want to just fill them all out, or we just jump in and just start picking a scene and
Yeah, you
fill?
can just go and pick something. Like if you like want to ask something. The one thing I'll say is don't worry about. I would say let's kind of stay similar. So I'm doing Scouts Return Refugees. Or actually, I'll probably do these two because they're this is like super fast, and then focus on this one. And then you want to start in the next one, getting to Act 2, which is the introduction of the tribal structure. And you can look at that's kind of very generic, but essentially they introduce it's the whole big section here at the top. And tribal chief introduces the various entities within the tribe and just try to like fill out that scene from those 4 paragraphs at the top of Act 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, just do that. Let's just do that. So so that's what sequence would that be? That would be like refugee introduction sequence, intro sequence. So you see the refugees on the outside, and then we see them on the inside. Okay. Okay, location is at Edge. Oh, actually, no. Encampment. External. JJ's brother, traitor. Tower turns out to refugee. So it's that. And one of the main characters in that scene. Now scroll up. Fill out some of these small scenes down here. It's just Tara learns of Jay's hunting failure, so that's Tara's home. Shift from hopeful. This is well for the emotional shift. I'm just putting in quotes with the person who the person is. Who's emotionally being shifting. So in that scene is Tara. She's hopeful to hopeless. Now, if you want to, so some case, if I think of it, I'll add in conflict if I know what it is. So in this one, um, Tara tries to convince husband to give him another try and give Jan a chance. So that's the conflict there. It's like obvious. But if you can't think of it or it doesn't seem obvious, I'm just skip it. That can be the hardest thing. And I don't think every scene needs it. I think that if it, for me, it doesn't come naturally because there's so many scenes. Like this is, 1 hour thing. We have like 25 scenes. So you have a lot of really fast scenes. So it's not going to be, in fact, you probably need to be cutting stuff. So to fit it all in. So I wouldn't worry about conflict unless it's obvious. Okay. I'm not always doing it, but you should say as part of location if it's internal, external. This is a good practice. Sometimes it might be obvious, but like Tara's home, I should say internal. So it could be out right outside, you know, just say one way or the other. Other. Oh yeah, no parent sequence. Oops. And sometimes I just put NA for what happens if the description says what happens. Like I say, Jay tells his brother the bad news about hunting training. So what's the scene's purpose? What happens? Well, what I just said. So I just put NA if it's not different. But sometimes it's generic title that I gotta explain more. Oops, oopsie. Do that. Why is this? You know what? Because oh, here's another one of his lines. Coincidences can get characters into trouble, but not out of them. One of his rules.
Yeah, I like that rule.
Yeah. It feels cheap because it gets them out of trouble. You want to go to these two? Tara catches Jay's brother stealing, then Jay learns brother's mistake.
Who do you asking if I want to do them?
You want to go and do those two? Or
Go
do the
for it.
next one? Huh?
You want to do them?
No, I mean either way, I'm just asking, would you rather do those or do the the next one, montage of Jay's failure? Which one?
I'll do the Jay's brother stealing.
Okay. So I'll leave you those two because they're kind of related because one falls right after the
Okay.
other. I'll just jump to this one. Okay. Oh, I just watched on Netflix was this past week was No Hard Feelings with Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh yeah. I saw
Heard
that.
that one? It's that movie's kind of weird. And one of the weirdest things about it is Jennifer Lawrence's character is very unlikable. Like most of the movie, she's somebody like
Yeah.
you do not want to like her. And I mean, part of it, I think, is the kind of jokes they wanted to tell require her to kind of be very rude and obnoxious. But I'm just saying it's kind of weird though to just have this rom com type of thing that doesn't really quite follow the. I give him credit, like it doesn't really follow quite the usual rom com structure. I mean, it kind of generally does, but not. But it's a little more clever about it. But throughout the thing you're watching, you're just like, man, I don't. She's bad news, man. She's just bad news. That was interesting. Think she has some work done too. Like she didn't look right. She looked, I don't know, it was bad makeup or something, but I don't know.
They did play it where like she always felt like she had like a sheen on her, like it was always hot or something.
What do you mean?
Like she always seemed glossy
Oh, you mean in
or like
general?
she was like
General?
sweating.
Oh, okay. That's so funny that she is Katniss Everdeen. That's just so weird because all of those senses have been so different from that. Like that was her origin. It was kind of like that's her big break. You know? On this one, she's like full on nude several times too, which is kind of expect from like I
Yeah.
mean, the first time you see it, like, whoa, I think I mean, she's just like running around naked. It's not even like, it's an odd nude scene. It's an odd nude scene. What's the list? I'm on the list. Go up in here. He's trying out. What does he do? Oh, the wrong way. Cooking, clothes, fish, tools. Where am I? Where am I? Oh, here I am. Second. Hmm. Oh, okay. Now I think it is more than one season. Okay. So Yeah, I'm looking back at yours though, after you do it. You can look at mine too, if that once you know, in between, no problem. Okay, where's the text for this? Yeah. See, we're kind of we're rushing through this whole process. But one thing that's kind of a plot hole is the fact that, and you can kind of chalk it up to emotionality because they're kids. But the fact that, Jay's trying to get into the camp the whole second act, and then they say, well, you're kids, so we'll just have you all get adopted by somebody. And then he's like, oh, well, fuck that, I'm gonna leave. It's like, well, and thing is, earlier on, the brother even suggests that, like, why have you been trying to be with these people? Let's just roll out. And then come later on, Jay's like, all right, forget it, we'll leave them. And we probably would need to go back and figure out Jay's psychology a little bit more to explain that kind of shift. I mean, you can do it, but I think that's something that is potentially an issue just because it seems to kind of contradict what we told the audience about Jay's intentions are. Now this can shift and change, but you usually want to have make sure you have a good explanation for why if you do so. I'm just seeing that in the scene in Act Two. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a shifting paradigm without explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Act Three. Yeah. So you ready for Act Three too?
Yep. Yep.
All right. Which one do you want to take first? First one or second one?
I'm down with taking that first one, if you don't mind.
No, come on, I don't care. All right. Okay. Let's do. Oh, I know what I'm gonna do. Let me do this thing though. Let me do just for this uh kind of like I call it the pre ambush sequence. So that's the last one's also the pre ambush sequence, and then now I'm going to that's all I want to do that. And then this is the sequence. This is the attack, the tribe attacks. This is going to be a tribe attack sequence. Misspell hostile. I did. That's terrible. Hostile. All right. All right. Add that to all these. Copy. Paste. I know probably can do. You could probably say that Josh is, I'm sorry, Jay. That Jay is of age where he has to leave, but his brother can stay. But Jay's like, no, we're not splitting up. And so if I have to leave, he's leaving
That
with me. That way you
yeah.
can go. So you have to do that. That'll work. All right. So that's the, oh, then do the after, yeah, aftermath. Yeah, yeah. So we got those. We got the sequences. Okay. Let me see this description. Okay. Hmm. Weird word that I can't spell. It's missing an E. I could not spell boredom for a minute.
BOREDOM.
Yeah, the E was missing. The me E was I couldn't. I was like, what can I do? Like, it's not that word isn't right, but I don't know how to fix it. It was the E was missing. That's a montage. Okay, I'll just do that. You can probably use the same tribe main hall for the location, external. So the outside or because it's basically near there, or just encampment external. Either one of those. Location. Okay. I guess it's very straightforward, actually. Okay, you got that one. Okay. Okay.
I'll let you do that next one too, because I feel like it flows from
Okay,
that one you're currently
okay,
doing.
okay. Oh, she does do that. Okay. It's an extra one. Ooh, you need that one. There we go. How many scenes was that? Well, I did longer and longer. Well, these are short. The ones at the last act are very short. Four, that's 12, 30, 40, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. Four. Yeah, that's 27 scenes. Wait, look at that.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to export it. There you go. But yeah, so let's say I think I just need to add character conflict to that template. So because most scenes you want to have that, you want to have two people that at least disagree slightly about something. For any consequential dramatic scene. I mean, like there what do we call those things? Not exponential, expository scenes. There are expository scenes which are just showing something, like the scene at the end with Jay and Jay's brother captured. It's expository. There's no conflict because they're just showing, hey, this happens. That's where they're at right now. But non-expository scenes you want to have conflict. So it kind of gives the scene, especially conflict that seems to put the situation in jeopardy as to what the result's going to be, right? So, conflict that like imagine like that horror movie in the caves, and the people are like there's a fork in the road. They got to decide which way to go, right? That's conflict, and it has the effect of deciding which way to go, right? So there's a conflict, but there's also result to that conflict that has an effect on the story. Because sometimes those scenes are conflict, but the conflict doesn't really matter. Like they'll just be conflicting. You'll see that sometimes in Marvel movies where people be arguing, being sarcastic with each other, but it doesn't really affect what's going to happen in the next scene or the end of that scene. It's just dialogue to have something happen. But ideally you want it to have purpose and meaning so that the people have the more stakes in it, right? More stakes in it. But yeah. All right, man. But yeah, so I'm gonna send out probably an email, I'll probably do a post, maybe getting next week or something, as well as an email. Just kind of explaining what we talked about in terms of, trying to find someone who's interested in, being a showrunner for a session or two, and for a story they want to have, they want input on building before or they can have something they've already done, and I'll write this out on the thing, or something they've already done that they want to kind of put back on the drawing boards. Okay, I have elements, all these pieces. That's what the kind of the cards are for, right? I have all these elements, and I don't know what to do with them, or it doesn't seem to work. Can I rearrange them, change some of them? So that's another thing too. It doesn't have to be something from scratch. But it doesn't be something from scratch, but it can be, it can be something you've already done that you just don't think works. And you want to try to see if you can figure out a way to make it work and get other input. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds great.
That's the idea. So yeah, man. So yeah, I don't have anything else, man. I'm kind of tired.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
It's like 11:40 my time.
Oh, that's right. Look at that. I saw you yawning and stuff too. Yeah. That's right. But all right, man. Well, again, thanks
Cool.
for doing the Zoom once again, setting that up and being patient with me as I forget about other obligations and stuff and have to
Yeah, no worries.
adjust it slightly. Yeah.
Look forward to seeing that email, and hopefully we get somebody to do it and we help them build their story. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. All right, man. So you go and get some rest, man. I'll talk to you later.
Cool. Talk to you later, Mike.
All right.